going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Dan, Kevin, Stevie P coming at you. What's going on, fellas?
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, guys? How's it making out?
All right, so we are video podcasting today for our very first time. So basically today we're going to get into the news, and then we're going to do some sleepers and rookie round sleepers that, basically guys that are being drafted, round 9 or later. And we're also going to get into some of the things from yesterday's preseason that we saw that we liked and didn't like. But first, don't forget to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That's www.4thandinchesff.com for a bunch of content. You got articles, blogs, player profiles, and you can subscribe to our draft guide, which features the decision maker, which is a tiered out guideline for 3 different drafting styles. You got one for your risky drafter, your conservative drafter, and then you got the tweener, which is basically a mix of both. The draft guide also features the cheat codes, which is a visual breakdown of every team's stats from last year. It's a great tool to prepare for your drafts, and it's the same tool we use to give you information on our podcast. So check that out, and also look for us on the Fantasy Life app. We will be doing start-sit questions throughout the year, and we are looking into doing a keeper question segment before the year starts as well. And if you're listening out there, please give us a 5-star rating and hit that subscribe button. So now we are on to the news.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention? I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Oh, yeah. So I will be reading the news today. So first piece of news, we got NFL reinstates wide receiver Josh Gordon. That is significant because we actually mentioned that the other day on the podcast.
Yep.
The Chargers coach Anthony Lynn isn't sure if safety Darwin James will be ready at all this season. So that, as we probably have all heard, Darwin James had a foot injury at practice, or was it in the game? I think it was practice. Yeah, it was at practice.
No. It was practice.
Yeah, it was a practice. Yeah, he had a foot injury, and that, they're saying now he might not play all season. So we'll find out. Cowboys left tackle Tyron Smith won't play in Saturday's preseason game against the Rams. We have Seahawks Ezekiel Ansah injured his groin in workouts earlier this week. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reports Amari Cooper is dealing with a strained knee.
Strained heel.
Oh, yeah, strained heel. I'm sorry. Strained heel. Avery Williamson, MRI confirmed a torn ACL in his right knee. And we have another news story about Darwin Williams. That's going to pop up a couple of times here. Ian Rappaport Chargers, Darwin Williams, we missed a significant amount of times. So that's definitely sounds bad. We got Bobby Wagner, lower body, returned to practice on Friday. That's wonderful for the Seahawks because without him, they'd be in real big trouble. Eric Williams expects the Chargers to use Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson in a 50-50 split during Melvin Gordon's holdout. That's not surprising because we've been telling you guys that. So, Cardinals corner Robert Alford will miss a significant amount of time with a leg injury. That actually is going to hurt the Cardinals. They're already, if you guys know, what's his name? Patrick Peterson is suspended for the first 4 games of the season, so they really can't afford to lose any corners. Andy Isabella caught 1 for 4 targets for a 59-yard touchdown in Thursday's preseason game. That was actually a pretty nice catch and run. Ravens slot wide receiver Taven Young, that's another one, could miss the entire season with a neck injury. That's a big deal. He played very well last year. He was rated one of the best, slot corners in football. So to lose him, that's a big deal. Antonio Brown is close to practicing again. Thank God. Kyler Murray completed 3 of 8 passes for 12 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in Thursday's preseason game against the Raiders. That we're definitely going to talk about. Adam Schefter reported Holdout running back Melvin Gordon is prepared to sit out regular season games if he does not have a contract before week 1. We kind of all knew that. And that looks like it's pretty much the news. Last thing here, Chris Mortensen reports that there is guarded optimism Andrew Luck will be ready for week 1. So that's the last thing here. You know, we kind of said...
Keenan Allen's ankle injury is on there as well.
Yeah, I didn't even see that one. Let me pop down more. I don't see that one.
Yeah, it says ESPN's Adam Schefter reports Keenan Allen is dealing with an ankle injury that is expected to hold him out for the rest of the preseason.
Yeah, well, from what I'm hearing about that, that's not a concern. They're saying that he's probably going to be ready for week 1. They're not really too concerned about it.
Yep.
So anything you guys want to hit on with that?
If Keenan Allen's not ready to go, Philip Rivers could probably have one of his 27 kids step in.
I think we got to talk about Josh Gordon. Where does Josh Gordon get drafted now that he is reinstated? I mean, according to what I'm reading, he's also not going to be serving any suspension as well. I think they drafted N'Keal Harry kind of as Gordon insurance. And they also got Demaryius Thomas, who, has resumed sprinting now. So, it won't be long before Demaryius is back there. What do you think about Josh Gordon? Does he, right now he's been like a kind of like a 12th, 13th, 11th round kind of, he's a sleeper. He's basically one of the guys we've been talking about today. And he's not going to be a sleeper by the time drafts come. He's going to be in the single digit rounds.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely move up. I mean, with his play last year with Tom Brady, they had a rapport. You could see it on the field. They didn't have huge games, but he had consistently, 60 to 80 yards receiving basically every game he played last year. And he was the most, other than Julian Edelman, he was basically the most targeted guy there. Gronk, you could tell, was not being as targeted as much as those guys. We all saw what happened with Gronk last year. That was a painful thing to watch, I guess I could say, because he was dominant for so long. But, as it pertains to Josh Gordon, for me, I feel like, he's definitely a guy that I want to take as my, wide receiver 3 if I can get him, I think he's going to probably move up into that range. I don't see him moving into the top 24. He could possibly, if the hype train, if we start seeing, things coming out of, Patriots camp that he looks phenomenal and he's the greatest wide receiver ever, like we've been hearing for the past 6 or 7 years since he had that huge rookie season. It could blow up into him being a top 24 guy, but for right now, I think he's gonna probably slot into the top 36, be in that 36 to 24 range.
Yeah, I was thinking like 6th, 7th round.
20 to 25, I think, just because of the name alone. I don't think he'll crack the 20 mark, and I don't think he's going to go over 30 in any drafts. I think just he's too talented of a player. He's on the Patriots. He's definitely going to get recognition. People aren't going to let him squeeze much past that. That's 7th, 8th round. I think just because of he's Josh Gordon, and they saw what he did last year with Tom Brady. I mean, he had some big plays. I mean, there was a couple times where Tom just threw it up and he came down with the ball. He is a phenom. He just has had his own unfortunate doing of not being able to stay on the field.
Yeah, I actually want to do a little experiment here with you guys. So the number 30 wide receiver being drafted is Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson or Josh Gordon?
Josh Gordon.
Yeah, I'll take Josh.
Let's move up a little bit. DJ Moore is 26th. Josh Gordon or DJ Moore?
I'm not a DJ Moore fan, so I'm Josh Gordon.
Yeah, me too. I'm not a DJ guy. I think, I think he should be going around where, his counterpart is going, and he's not. So, yeah, I'm definitely taking Gordon.
All right, so in between DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, there's Christian Kirk, Alshon Jeffrey, and Mike Williams.
Kirk and Jeffrey I'm taking above him.
Okay. Definitely Jeffrey. Kirk is, I don't know. I don't like the way that
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I like the way Kyler played yesterday, but so Kirk's 50-50 for me. I'll go either way.
All right. So there, PPR, Jarvis Landry. You taking Jarvis over Josh Gordon?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
All right,
Jarvis.
so that's
in
basically
PPR.
the cutoff.
PPR no brainer for me.
Yeah, we basically give rankings and ADPs off PPR scoring. So Jarvis Landry is the 25th wide receiver. So that basically puts Josh Gordon in the 25 to 30 range, which, probably, like I said, we'll probably be getting him drafted in like the 6th, 7th round. And if you can get him later than that, I would hop on him because, like
it's
Steve
it's
said,
unlimited upside. I mean, Josh Gordon he doesn't have huge upside. He has unlimited upside. We've seen what he's done before. So, I mean, if he ends up falling in 30, I'm definitely not surprised because he hasn't played much football, but he has unlimited amount of upside.
The one thing I will add to that is we all saw what Tom Brady looked like towards the end of last season. It's not like this dude was throwing
50-yard
yard.
bombs.
Yeah, I mean, 80
he was
yard
not
bombs
doing
down the
that.
field. He
Yeah.
wasn't doing that. He was a dink and dunk offense. So, I definitely think you guys, need to temper your expectations when it comes to the long ball. You know what I mean? If he's breaking things, 15-yard passes, breaking them for touchdowns, then I could see some explosive plays coming from him. But, I don't know how many times Tom Brady's going to be taking super deep shots down the field like he was with Randy Moss there.
Yeah. So let's get into the Arizona Cardinals situation. For me, I'm all right. Watching the game, it's not a Kyler Murray thing. It's an offensive line thing.
Oh yeah.
That's the biggest problem with the Arizona Cardinals. They made me scared to draft David Johnson as high as I was. I was having David Johnson as like the number 5 running back and my number 5 pick. He's not there for me because of that offensive line. He had no room to run yesterday. And I don't think, I understand they say vanilla playbook in the preseason. You cannot account for a bad offensive line. Like that doesn't change. Your offensive line, they're going out there trying to perform their best and block other players. And the Arizona Cardinals last year couldn't do it. And in that game yesterday, they could not do it at all. So I'm officially worried about those two guys, not because of their talent. I think David Johnson is one of the best running backs in the league. And Kyler looks like he can make plays. He's escaping the pocket. He was escaping the pass rush. A lot of his throws were off target, but almost every one of his throws, he was on the run. So for me, like those guys dropped for me just because not because of their talent, because their offensive line is just so terrible.
Yeah, I know Steve definitely wants to get in this, but for me, it was hard to evaluate Murray because literally every play there was people breathing down his neck. So he did not have a clean pocket to throw in. I don't think maybe but once. And he was all over the place. Every drive was cut short because, he was not in unmanageable positions. It was, and I know that the announcers kept reiterating that, Kingsbury he's not opening up the playbook. He's just giving a little taste he's just basically trying to get the guys going and get the football mentality back. And he's going to explode once season starts. And I could totally see it happening, but it was rough to watch because that offense looked horrible with that offensive line.
Yeah, for me, if anything, it made me worried about David Johnson, like Kev said. What I saw yesterday, if that's going to be the case that the offensive line is doing that and looking that way, Kyler Murray is going to run for 800 yards, and I have no doubt about it.
He's going to get killed, though.
Hey, if he's
going to get killed.
If they are going to be rushing him like that. But that's the thing. Kyler Murray's a baseball player. Kyler Murray slides. Like he did it in college. He never took big hits.
No, he gets out of bounds, too.
Yes, he gets out of bounds. He slides. He knows when to get down. Like if you even watch him in the preseason games, when the guys are breathing down his neck, he goes right down. He never takes the big hit. Like I watched almost every one of his games in college, and I never saw him get like crushed ever. Because he knows when a guy's coming, he goes down. Like he's not going to sacrifice himself to try to get a yard or two. He's not Michael Vick. He's not he's not Cam Newton. He's not none of those guys, and he knows he's small. You know what I mean? So when he sees pressure coming, he gets right down. So for me, I don't think that didn't worry me at all about Kyler. That worried me about David Johnson. And, some of these receivers, maybe, we need to downgrade the passing yardage that he gets because he's just not going to have the time to look down the field and get the ball down there. So, we're gonna have to see what this air raid offense looks like. If it's the true air raid that we saw in college, it's gonna be a lot of quick slants, flat routes, just things, a lot of bubble screens, wide receiver screens, just all kinds of different, quick patterns to get the ball out of his hands quickly and keep the offense moving. Eventually, what the purpose of Cliff Kingsbury offense is going to do is it's going to wear down defenses because they're constantly in motion trying to get back and get back and get back because he's getting the ball out of his hands quickly. So eventually, I think what Cliff Kingsbury is thinking is, if I wear these defenses down, the pass rush in the beginning of the game is going to be on us, but if I can wear these teams down in the second half, they're going to be winded and we're going to be able to score points, and we're not going to get pass rushed the way we are in the beginning of games.
Yeah, I mean, I hope for Kyler's sake that works because, we've seen this story before. That's, Chip Kelly was move the ball, wear it down. It wasn't quick passes and everything like that, but, if that's all you're going to do is those quick passes, you're going to have cornerbacks jumping these routes all the time. So it's going to, there's going to have to be variations of it, and Kyler's going to have to take 5 and 7-step drops, and that line's going to have to hold up. Like for me, it made me worried about the whole Arizona offense because, last year they gave Josh Rosen no chance to succeed as a rookie. And, Kyler doesn't look like he has much of a chance either standing behind that line.
He was strikingly resembling to Russell Wilson with a little more zing on the ball. It was like the way he moves his body and shifts and just knows positioning and plays smart, gets out of bounds. Just the throws he makes. He looks so much like Russell Wilson, but he's definitely that ball explodes out of his arm. So, I mean, there's a chance for this kid to be something incredible. So I hope they put something around, they build that line around him, because otherwise he's going to get crushed. He ain't going to make it through a full season. All
right. Is there anything else in the news we want to talk about?
I'm going to say this. Lamar Jackson we're basically going over like yesterday.
Yeah, it's whichever preseason games.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson to me looked really good again. He had the touchdown run that was called back, but man, he was getting the ball out of his hands really quick. I thought all the running backs really looked good. Even Kenneth Dixon was in there more with the starters than Justice Hill was. To me, Justice Hill looks freaking amazing when he comes in there. He's so quick and shifty. It's unbelievable. If you put him and Lamar Jackson in the same backfield, that's a problem. But to me, Lamar looks really good. And if he can stay on track for, if he stays on track for this development throughout the regular season, this guy could potentially win people fantasy championships, much like Mahomes did last year. Because Mahomes, not in the same way necessarily, because Mahomes obviously was gunning the ball throughout the air, but you're getting a guy like Lamar Jackson. He's going in like the 11th, 12th round right now. And this guy literally could be a top 5 quarterback to me if he continues this development. He's going to run probably between anywhere near 750 and 1,000 yards in between that number. And if his passing game, like I said, if it continues on this track, Lamar Jackson could be like that fantasy sleeper quarterback in the double-digit rounds that winds up winning you a league.
Yeah, I agree. I think, when we talked about the Ravens, and I've been saying this for a little while, I think the Ravens offense is being underrated. I do. I'm not saying that he is going to throw for 4,500 yards and be, the greatest quarterback who ever lived. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, if you play in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, you have to take into account that this dude has 1,000-yard rushing upside. He does. Period. Like, there's no denying that he could run for 1,000 yards this year. Not including, he could have double-digit rushing touchdowns and, 15 to 20 passing touchdowns. So if you're in a 4-point per passing touchdown league, he could be just insanely dominant. He could be, if you take the rushing yards and the passing yards and you add them together, he could be, 40, he could be 6,000 passing yards. You know what I mean? Something ridiculous. It could literally, if you combine the two, read the blog on the website, and you guys will see I do a really good breakdown of how it would work out. But he could break fantasy football. Let's just put it that way. He could literally break fantasy football. He could make it so that, we have to change quarterback scoring, because if the dude runs for 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns and then throws for 3,500 yards, which I don't think is crazy, and 25 touchdowns, he's going to be the number one quarterback, and he's going to be the number one scorer, and it's not going to be close. It's going to be, he's by far the top scorer, period.
Did you guys hear that one of the ESPN, when they were doing Sports Center, they called him the human cheat code?
Oh, they did?
They did. They did this morning. They called him the human cheat code.
That's awesome.
That's copyright infringement.
Copyright.
Copyright infringement.
Yep. Literally, when they called him that, I was like, oh my gosh, even ESPN is listening to us now and taking our words. Yeah, you guys both touched on Lamar, just on the Baltimore game. I'll talk about the run game a little bit and how I've been preaching. I know you guys are huge on Ingram, but I've been a little more on the RBBC, and it's basically, I've been, for weeks now, and I've been saying that this kid Hill he's special. And that's the only reason I don't think that they're going to, pound Ingram up and down the field, is because there's too much other talent in that backfield. So the more that I watch, it's only 2 weeks into preseason, but the more you evaluate this Baltimore team, they could be a team that sneaks up on you all around. If Lamar even has half of what they expect him to do, because they don't expect him to do squat as far as the passing game goes. So if he can give you anything, if he can give you 3,000 yards and 15, 20 touchdowns, and this run game is just, as balanced and strong as they expect it to be, this Baltimore team could be one of the teams to watch out for in the AFC.
Yeah, and that was exactly what I was saying, Steve. Like, he's not going to be like a 4,500 yard, 5,000 yard, 50 touchdown guy like Mahomes was, but like you said, he gets 1,000 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, and then throws for 2,500 yards and 20 touchdowns. Like, that's ridiculous. That is a ridiculous amount of points for a quarterback, and
that's still a 5,000 yard passing season.
Yeah, and you're getting that in the 11th round, 11th, 12th round. Like the 11th, 12th round, that's where he's going right now.
Yeah, QB 18, something like that. It's QB 16 maybe. It depends on what draft board you're looking at, but I know he's moving up, because I think everybody's listening to us. I was
going to say, I think right now he's quarterback 16 in the 11th round.
Yeah.
To me, that's going to change. He's going to rise just because people are starting to notice. And, if you think about Michael Vick, man, when Michael Vick was with Atlanta, and even that one season where he was MVP runner-up in Philly, like, he was awesome. He was awesome. He was going in like the first round the next year. People drafted him in the first round because he was so good. And
I was at that Monday night game in Washington. The game where he put 6 touchdowns on the board. He had 4 passing, 2 rushing. He had 450 total yards. He was unstoppable. They literally could not do anything about it. He did whatever he could that night. Speaking of Philly, though, you got anybody on the Eagles or Jacksonville relevant? Miles Sanders, look, the kid makes incredible cuts. He's 1-2 cuts, and he is ripping 12 yards off like that. Man, it brings some excitement when you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, because we definitely have ourselves a nice back for the future.
Yeah, I'm not going to get too in depth with Miles. I've been ranting and raving about this dude for 2-3 months now. So, to me, I'll simply say he was my favorite back coming out of the draft, and he is proving me right.
Yeah, my issue with Miles is not talent. My issue with Miles is touchdowns, and that would be, to me, the only thing that sets him back in fantasy for me, because I think when they get into the goal line, it is going to be Jordan Howard time, because that's what Jordan Howard does. Anything else from the preseason, guys, you want to get into?
That Green Bay game was terrible.
Yeah.
that was a tedious and terrible, really hard to watch. I suffered through it today. But there's not really anything I really wanted to get. I really wanted to get excited about Dexter Williams, but that fumble really just was like, come on, dude, are you serious? Like that play just, especially when you're a rookie back, you can't make that mistake. You know what I mean? Like you can't run and let the ball hit you in the hip and fumble like when your quarterback is putting it in your belly. Like you need to grab that ball and take it. So, and then he gets a 15-yard run with one of the biggest holes I've ever seen, and he gets up and he's like, feed me. I mean, like Zeke. And I'm just sitting there thinking in my head, like, oh my God, if I was his coach, I'd be sitting him down and be like, bro, listen, you
are nobody. You're a nobody.
Exactly. Like, don't showboat because you just fumbled the last drive, bro. Like, you literally just fumbled the last drive, and you're happy about a 15-yard play that wasn't impressive at all. You know what I mean? That's just, I don't know. It was that was the one thing that stuck out in that game that I was just like, come on, dude.
Yeah, I thought, don't think nothing of this too much, but I thought the kid Ryan Finley that backed up Andy Dalton looked really good.
Yeah.
Not saying that he's going to take his job or anything, but that dude was throwing strikes, and he had a lot of pressure on him and was standing in there and throwing some really nice passes. So
that's another offensive line that's really bad, and they could really wait on Finley for next season and just see how he develops this year and just let Andy get his ass romped, because that's what it looks like is going to happen. You know what I mean? And if Finley ends up turning into something next year and they decide to part ways with Andy, I could see him being a good quarterback. He was throwing some laser beams down there. I liked the tape he put on.
Derek Carr had a good opening drive, one down the field, touchdown. And that was it. That was his night. So he looked good on his opening drive.
Yep.
Yeah, he did. But the Cardinals' defense defense was rough too.
Oh,
so
yeah.
They were.
Yeah. See, Jacobs. That was the other thing. Me and Kev were. We went to the bar last night, guys. We were all. We had a business meeting and we were all hanging out, and we watched some of the games there, and. I know you guys, if you were looking and you saw Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs. If you saw Josh Jacobs, he looked good. He looked really good. But like me and Kev were saying last night to each other, this is the Cardinals defense. Let's calm down. You know what I mean? Like this is not a defense. I want to see him do it against, the Ravens or, a team where I know they're going to have a good run defense this year.
Yep. So I think that's pretty much we touched on, as much as we needed to in the preseason. Gave you some good guys that we saw were doing good things out there. So I think we should get into our sleepers segment.
Hold on, real quick, Kev. We actually have a question, listener question. So I am going to read that. E Estrada 79 asks the question. It says bye weeks. He says bye weeks, do you factor them into your drafts? He says, I know that you look at strength of schedule, but do you guys care if you have multiple players with the same bye week? Do you just say, well, let's take that week as an L, or what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, for me, this seems like a question I think I hear a lot on other podcasts as well, and I don't really factor bye week in too much. I mean, I try. Obviously, you don't really want to have, two of your running backs on bye, two of your wide receivers on bye. But I mean, when it's all the same, if you got a lot of people on your team with the same bye week, you're really sacrificing 1 week. I don't think there's really an advantage either way of, taking one loss or just missing one guy a week for 7 weeks. I don't really think there's an advantage either way. So like I said, I really don't even factor it in when I'm drafting. I try to use my knowledge on some of the later round players. And if I do wind up with guys that are on multiple bye weeks, like I said, I use that knowledge of my later round players to kind of make up for, what might be missing in those bye weeks.
Yeah, I actually don't do either. I don't take like all the guys on the same bye week and just chalk that week up for an L. I do look a little bit. I don't want all my star guys, my top 4 or 5 round picks to be on the same bye. But if I like a guy in the mid to late rounds and he's got a bye that one of my other guys has, I'm still going to take him, because by the bye time, the bye weeks round, week 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, there's guys that you can hit the waiver wire for a week if you need somebody to just plug and play. I mean, if your bench is strong enough, you should be okay regardless.
Yeah, for me, I look at the really only position that I worry about. Like, let's say, for example, the Kevs, was talking the other day and saying that Drew Brees and Lamar Jackson have really good, the way the schedule works out. They both, you can play Drew Brees at home, you can play Lamar, on the road. If that was the case and they both had the same bye week, I'm not doing that. You see what I'm saying? So if you have a quarterback that you're questionable about and you want to take another player, I'm looking at that and going, okay, let me make sure these guys don't have the same bye week. I mean, if I have Phillip Rivers and I want to take the chance on Lamar Jackson, I want to make sure they don't have the same bye week, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? So that's really the only position I worry about that, because I never take two defenses in like a dynasty league or something like that. If I, was doing a startup draft and, I needed to pick a defense and, you want to have two of them because everybody's drafting to fill up their roster completely. I would check that out, but for redraft purposes, I'm not really worried about the bye weeks, because for me, my team that I start the season with is not going to be the team I finish with. I'm going to be making trades. I'm going to be picking up guys off the waiver wire. I'm going to be doing this and that. So, to worry about a bye week, 4 of my guys having a bye week in week 9 is not something I take into account.
All right. So, before we get into the sleepers, do you want to address the draft from today as well, Steve?
Oh, my God. All right, guys. I have to get this out in the open. We have been doing these listener leagues, and they're a lot of fun. I mean, I interacting with you guys is a lot of fun. We enjoy doing it. We enjoy, talking about your guys' teams, talking about, fantasy football, period. But that was torture. That was unbelievably torturous playing in that slow draft. Slow literally was the way we would word this. It literally, I think we had, if we could hold up the stats, if we just put up the stats on how long it took 6 or 7 different guys to make a pick, they probably averaged 6 hours in between picks. Like, I'm not kidding you. I mean, and we did 8-hour picks for everyone. So, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to be in a slow draft, this is what I will say. If you were invited into a slow draft, make it a point to at least every 2 hours check your phone and see if, you don't have to be on there long. Just literally boop, boop.
That's the thing. You don't even have to make it a point. Everybody in society now checks their phone consistently, even if you're at work. People say, "Oh, well, I'm working." That's the biggest excuse. Dude, when you're working, at least at some point you're going to the bathroom and you're pulling your phone out to check it and just get on social media. See what time it is, whatever it is. Set your notifications. You'll get a little bloop and it'll pop up and you'll know what's going on. You don't even have to answer it right away. But I mean, Jesus, man, this draft was very this was the worst one we did. We started 2 drafts after this one, and
they got done first.
Those 2 drafts got done. The Superflex League literally got done a full 2.5 days before this one, and we started that one like
I think a day or
later?
2 after. I think it might have been 2 days after.
Yeah,
that was torturous. That was really, really bad. And we are going to go over that league, and we are going to blast you guys with that podcast, because we are definitely going to put you on blast if you took 6 hours to make every single pick. I'm just letting you know.
All right, so let's get into our sleepers. Now, when we basically determined this, we came up with sleepers being anybody kind of drafted round 9 or later. Those are the guys, when you draft them, you're not really planning on those guys being your starters. Unless it's a quarterback or, so we're not really going to include quarterback unless they're, later on in the draft. And we already kind of excluded Lamar Jackson because we talked about him enough today. But, let's start it off. Steve, you want to give me your first sleeper that you were looking at here?
Yeah, I'm going to throw one up that I think both of us are going to talk about, and Dan might actually talk about too. So Devin Singletary, is a guy that I'm going to put on my list. My list is going to consist of all rookies because we actually had a podcast listener, one of the league mates, listener league mates, asked this question and asked if we could talk about rookies. So all of my guys are rookies, just because I wanted to hit really hard on the rookies for him. But Devin Singletary is a guy that, to me, has a lot of upside this year. I think, LaShawn McCoy showed last year that he's slowing down a little bit. And I've been watching a lot of LaShawn McCoy tape the past couple of days just because I want to see, if it's true that he's slowing down. And I'll tell you what, he still made some crazy cuts last year. He still looked, pretty good. You can definitely see that his long speed is not what it used to be, but he definitely looks like a productive back. So I could definitely see the Buffalo Bills trading him and somebody wanting him because if you watch his tape, he didn't look bad. But Frank Gore is 36 years old. TJ Yeldon is fighting to make this team. So to me, Devin Singletary is definitely the second back on this team, and he's going to see a lot of work, this year because the Buffalo Bills want to be a running team. That's what the Buffalo Bills want to do. And if you watch today's preseason game, I was watching the first quarter of that. He had 2 catches for 24 yards, and he looked really good getting out of the backfield. He's a guy that I think they're going to use in every facet of the game, and I think he's going to get a lot of touches regardless to whether LaShawn McCoy leaves or not. And I just really like this player, and you're getting him in round 11, 12. For me, that's great. I love that.
Yeah, he's going around 10 at the back end of round 10. I'm not going to get into him. You kind of addressed him enough, and I talked about him in our podcast the other day when we were talking about league-winning players, guys that you can get late. I think Devin Singletary is one of those guys because when you are able to get a potential starting running back in the 10th round, 11th round, those guys will win you leagues. And to me, like I said, I think maybe not to start the year, but at some point they're going to give this guy, the ability to prove himself. And, those guys at the end that kind of come in fresh tend to, have a little more bounce in their step compared to the rest of the league because the rest of the league's been playing for, 6-7 games and been beating each other up. And this guy's been, sitting on the bench waiting to come in there. And, if Shady gets traded, all the more reason that he could potentially, wind up starting the season. I do think Frank Gore would wind up starting the season as the starter, even if they traded Shady. But, for me, I think Singletary at some point is going to be the starting running back, and to get that guy in round 10 is perfect.
Yeah, he's young, he's talented. So, look at Shady when he first started in Philadelphia, how shifty and incredible he was, and now Father Time has caught up with him and Frank Gore. So it's just, it gets the best of all the running backs. It just can't last forever. So it's next man up, and he's going to show that he is capable of handling the workload. And Shady, whether he's traded or not, he's gonna fizzle in Buffalo. And Frank Gore, I agree with you, Kev. I actually think that if they do trade Shady, Frank will probably be the day one starter until Singletary shows that he's got what it takes. He's a good talent. So it's in round 10, huge upside. Right now it's tough to say. It's Buffalo. We don't, I don't know if they're going to be scoring a ton of points like some of these powerhouse offenses. So to say he's going to, have 800 yards and 7-8 touchdowns is a little bit of a stretch, but he's got a huge upside. I think a really good dynasty player. Wouldn't you guys agree with that for sure?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have him in our
Yeah.
dynasty league. I drafted him in the 3rd round, and I love it.
Yeah, definitely great dynasty player.
All right, Dan, how do you feel? Give me a sleeper on your end.
I'll stick with Steven. We'll go with another rookie and another incredible dynasty player. JJ Whiteside. He is a supreme talent, and he's got the ability to knock Aguilar right out of the team. They're talking about trade candidates, and it's because they want to get JJ on the field more. He's a matchup nightmare. If you do yourselves a favor, guys, and it'll probably entice you to draft him late. Just watch some of his highlights at Stanford because he is a go up and get every ball that they were throwing into that corner end zone, and it's incredible. And that just, you can't teach that. It just that'll carry over into the NFL because most of the cornerbacks are only 6 foot, 6'1", and he's big, He's strong, and he's only going to get better. And he's got Carson Wentz as his quarterback, which that can't hurt either.
Yeah, I mean, to me, JJ has great touchdown upside. Kind of talked a little bit in. I don't remember if it was our wide receiver podcast or if it was a rookie podcast. I think it might have been our dynasty podcast, but I brought out the formation of potentially having Alshon and JJ on the outside and Goddard and Ertz on the inside, and how much size that is in the red zone. That just creates such a mismatch for the opposing defenses. That's pretty much where I think he's going to be used. At least for his rookie season is kind of in the red zone. Steve probably tends to disagree with that, but
no, I think I'll see the field a lot more than people expect. I think he's gonna get some action.
Oh, I think he's going to get action. Like I said, I think he's going to they're not going to put Deshaun in there for jump balls in the red zone. I think that's really JJ's forte. And like I said, to me, I think he, could catch 5-6 touchdowns this year easily. Not a bad chance to take at the end, because if Deshaun gets hurt as well, which Deshaun will miss a few games every year, I think JJ's that guy that they're going to throw on the outside.
Yeah. For me, I love JJ Arcega-Whiteside. I think he could be very dominant in the NFL. I think that his type of player is the guys that creep up on teams. You know what I mean? Like Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay is a perfect example of a guy that, reminds me of JJ, because, Kenny came into the league. Everybody was like, he might be good. And then last year he showed, wow, this dude could be really, really good. You know what I mean? I think JJ is going to be the exact same way. I think JJ is going to start off a little slow, try to build a rapport with Carson. By maybe the mid to end of this year, you're going to see flashes of dominance from this kid. And he next year could be a, guy that you're picking as your third wide receiver. So, definitely, I love that you brought him up, Dan, because I really think he has a lot of upside.
All right, so I'm going to give you a guy that's going really late in drafts. I know I've seen Steve grab him a couple times. I tried to grab him and decided not to. Decided to go in a different direction, but it's a guy that I think for PPR leagues, Chris Thompson could be a beast. Okay, because if you look at this guy when he stays healthy, he always performs. His biggest issue has been staying on the field, but to me, if you're taking a guy in round 14 that has a chance to literally put up, double-digit fantasy points week in, week out. Chris Thompson has done that before. 2 years ago, I think it was 2 years, maybe 3 years at this point, but this guy seemed like he was their do-it-all back there. And, of course, they got Geis and AP, but those guys are not necessarily good pass-catching backs. And, I think for PPR leagues to get a guy like Chris Thompson, who we've seen perform very well, as a great pickup in the 14th round.
Yeah, I think if Chris Thompson stayed healthy, he had James White type potential. I mean, he is incredible out of the backfield. He really is, and he's gonna see a lot of action, because we don't know what the status of Geis is, and Adrian Peterson is how longer can he keep doing what he's doing? I mean, he had that unexpectedly really good year last year, but I just talked about how McCoy and Frank Gore are aging, and he's right there with them, if not a couple years older. I don't think he's older than he's probably 34. So I like Thompson a lot. I think he is, barring health, he has huge potential every play to break something loose, and he's going to see all that third down action with his ability to catch.
Yeah, definitely. Chris Thompson is a guy I'm taking everywhere. I've been taking him basically in every draft that I've been in. Getting him super late, and I think he has especially in a PPR, he has extreme upside. If he does play 16 games, he has a possibility, I said it the other day, to be a top 30 running back that you're getting basically in your last round of your drafts. You know what I mean? So, I'm not going to add too much to it, but yeah, I definitely think, taking a flyer on guys like that after round 10, I'm not taking them obviously round 10 because, you don't have to. But just a guy like that, I think, has extreme upside, can really help your team.
Yep.
So my next player is Damian Harris. So, we kind of talked about this a little bit yesterday, on Wednesday. We talked about this with Sony Michel. They're saying that Sony Michel is, the guy, and I don't disagree that Sony Michel is the number one back for the New England Patriots. My point is, I think that they didn't draft Damian to make him sit the bench. They took him in the 3rd round. He was a day 2 guy. I think he's going to get run. You know what I mean? Even if Sony stays healthy all year long. And this is the one thing that I think we gloss over, but we don't really talk about. Sony Michel was terrible in the red zone last year. On the goal line, he could not get in. You know what I mean? If you guys remember, they were putting what's his name, the fullback, in to run in a lot of his touchdowns in the playoffs. Yeah, James Devlin was stealing touchdowns from Sony because Sony couldn't get in the end zone. You know what I mean? They just basically gave up on him. And then in the playoffs, Trenton Brown started playing like an absolute animal. If you want to watch offensive line tape of a guy that was just an outrageous beast in the playoffs, watch Trenton Brown last year. Literally, Sony Michel was riding literally up his ass on 90% of his runs and breaking off huge chunks of yardage. Which is why he was so good in the playoffs. So, I think they brought Damian Harris in for his goal line work, and I do think he's going to score touchdowns this year. I do think he's going to be a guy that's going to get some run this year. It would not surprise me if he had 100 carries this year and, scored 8 touchdowns. And he's a guy that you're basically, with all the Sony talk, you're getting in, around 13, 14.
Damian Harris is a guy that, after you spoke so highly of him a couple months ago, I was doing a little more research on him, and I don't know. Kev brought up Sony Michel last week, and I'm not high on either of them. I'm kind of like a wait and see on what they're going to do between the two of them. I don't, I think Sony's going to definitely get a lot of carries to begin with for sure. But Damian could definitely work into that load. But now they got Berkman back, and they're always going to use James White obviously on 3rd down. So for me, I think it's going to be too much of a running back by committee. So I'm not as high as you are, Steve, but I'm definitely curious to see how he does his rookie season.
Yeah, I don't want to say I disagree. I don't think Damian Harris is a bad player. I just think Sony is the guy there. Obviously, Sony has injury history, so there is a chance that Damian Harris could cut into that workload because of whether they want to rest Sony a little bit, give him a breather, just make sure they keep him fresh. To me, if you're drafting a New England Patriots running back, it's probably James White because he is the, I guess has the most consistent role, and that role is not going to change. But I don't think Damian Harris is a bad flyer to take, knowing his injury history of Sony Michel. And, if Sony goes down, I do think Damian Harris steps in and winds up, taking over most of that work.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that, Damian Harris is a great guy to take, necessarily, but I think he's going to score touchdowns. Sony Michel, if you look at the numbers, he had, 5 carries inside the 12. He scored 5 touchdowns. He had 27 carries inside the 10, and, that's 27 carries is what you have to look at, because the way we do, if you look at the cheat codes that we put on our website, carries inside the 10, he had 27, and then rushing touchdowns are inside the 10 because, we don't put inside the 5, inside the 10. We don't do that breakdown because, it's basically the same difference. It might be a touchdown or 1 touchdown, difference from most guys. So we don't really break it down that way. But, out of 27 carries, he only scored 5 touchdowns. So, he just wasn't great for that role. So I think Damian Harris will definitely be in that role. And in a Patriots offense, we know they've had guys that scored 20 touchdowns, a la LeGarrette Blount, 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yep. Dan, it's on you.
All right, second guy that I've been evaluating, and the more I'm looking into him and what his draft position is, the more I'm starting to like him, especially with an injury on the team. And Matt Breida. We don't know what McKinnon's going to be, with his injury, and I don't think Tevin Coleman's going to be, the every down back, obviously, because he wasn't in Atlanta. So I think Brady's going to get a ton of work. I mean, you guys are super high on San Fran and their, the Shanahan system with the extreme running offense. So Brady showed a lot last year, and I think he's going to be used. And he's being drafted in like the 11th round or so. So I think I think he's a huge steal in the 11th or 12th round.
Yeah, I agree. I think Kyle Shanahan runs a zone scheme, zone running scheme, which is a one cut, get up the field and go guy. You know what I mean? He does a lot of play action. He's very multiple in his sets when you watch the team set up to run the ball. I mean, you kind of don't know if they're running or passing because they run and pass out of the same exact formations a lot of the time. So when you're watching the 49ers offense, it's hard to figure out, just like it was a couple years ago, to figure out with the Falcons what they were doing, which is why Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman were so productive that year because they run multiple sets and they pass and run out of those same sets, which makes it very difficult. So I think both guys could have very good seasons. We're hearing that it's going to be a 65-35 split between the two, and I want both of them still. I mean, I think a 65-35 split between those two guys makes them both very productive. If Breida is playing better and it's a 60-40 split, then there's going to be weeks, maybe multiple weeks, that you're going to be playing both those guys, one in your RB2 slot and one in your flex, because that offense is just going to score points. Like they scored points last year with freaking
Mullins.
Mullins throwing the ball and
Nick
who was
Mullins
the other
didn't do
guy?
bad.
Yeah, no, he actually did play well last
He
year.
didn't do too bad.
Yeah, so for me, I do like both of those running backs.
Yeah, I mean, exactly what Steve said. I mean, we've been preaching that the 49ers run game is very effective. Kyle Shanahan, that Shanahan system knows how to get running backs involved. I mean, Terrell Davis was an undrafted rookie turned Hall of Famer because, the Shanahan system just works perfectly if you know how to make that first cut and find that open hole. So, I think Breida did a great job of it last year. And, I think he'll be behind McKinnon to start the year, but injuries to running backs happen all the time, and Breida could definitely see himself as the starting running back there if, Coleman goes down. Because right now McKinnon doesn't seem like who knows what's going on with McKinnon. They're saying he's basically going to start the season on the injured reserve.
Yeah, he's on injured reserve to start.
Yeah. So my next guy that I'm going to talk about is another rookie, is Darwin Thompson. Darwin Thompson is on the Kansas City Chiefs. If you watch the first preseason game, the dude looks incredibly quick. Showed the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield really smooth, and turn the ball upfield really well. From what I heard, I was listening to the CBS podcast today. It's the CBS fantasy podcast, and one of the guys said he basically was hearing that Carlos Hyde may not even make the team right now, that he's actually fighting for his job on the team. And, to me, that means Damian Williams gets hurt. Darwin Thompson could be next up. Darwin Thompson could also see some of the passing work if they want to give Damian Williams the running work. There is Darrell Williams there, who's another guy that could cut into that workload. They've been talking about going RBBC, but I think Darwin Thompson has, great ability, especially with Patrick Mahomes running that offense. Any running back who gets behind that offense is going to be effective. Andy Reid has done it for years. So to me, Darwin Thompson is a guy in the 13th round that I don't mind taking a flyer on.
Yeah, I agree. If you look at the breakdown of, rushing attempts last year, Kareem Hunt had 181. Patrick Mahomes was the second best guy on that team, with 60. So I think if they, in an Andy Reid offense, the one thing that does scare me a little bit is that sometimes he just completely abandons the run. You know what I mean? He just gets pass happy and doesn't want to run the ball at all. So he kind of forgets, which is another reason why I'm scared of Damian Williams. But, Damian Williams had 50 carries last year. Kareem Hunt had 181. So, Spencer Ware had 50. So you're looking at basically 300 touches, somewhere around there. And they got to go somewhere. So if Damian Williams, is banged up, if he gets banged up and continues to get banged up, I agree with Kev. I think Thompson could be, the guy that you want out of that backfield.
And see, the thing is with that is if, that's pretty much what Thompson's role is. He is a pass catching back. So if they do wind up going into that pass happy offense, Thompson could be out there a little bit more than we think.
Yeah, I mean, that would probably be the biggest turnoff for me as far as it goes with him, because I completely agree with Steve as far, Andy Reid. I mean, we've seen it in Philly for so long. He gets crazy with the passing and completely does abandon the run. And I mean, he's got such a gifted quarterback now, so he may utilize that even to a higher degree. And that's why I've been, so low on Damian Williams. Besides the fact that, Damian's I'm not low on Damian Williams. I just don't like where he's being drafted at second, third round, where I think he should be more in the fourth round, because I'm just not sold on running back in Andy Reid offense right now, especially with him having such elite receivers on the team. But with the pass catching, I think he adds value there. So I think you could definitely, would you say get 14th round? I think it's definitely worth a flyer, because there's going to be a lot of meat on that bone. 13th round, there's going to be a lot of meat. There's going to be a lot of leftover meat on that bone to eat off of with how many points this team scores. They were number one scoring team last year. They're probably going to be the number one scoring team this year. Kelsey and Hill are going to get theirs, but there's going to be touchdowns to go around. So some of this cream is going to rise to the top. We're just going to have to see who it is.
Yep. So I think I'm up. Am I up?
Yeah, you are up. Well, we'll go one more guy each.
Okay, that works.
Okay.
So if we're gonna go one more guy each, then I'm not gonna go with some of the guys that we've already talked about. So I am actually gonna go. I'll go Deebo Samuel, because I talked about Deebo a lot in some of our other podcasts, and I'm sorry. I said this in our Dynasty League podcast. I do think he has a chance of being the 49ers' number one wide receiver. I think this dude is a phenomenal route runner. Like, if you just watch the dude in college, he runs such crisp routes and gets open. And when he gets the ball in his hand, it's a wrap. My man can take it to the house on any play. And I just think that's going to be too enticing for Kyle Shanahan to see every day. You watched him last week in the preseason. I mean, the dude had two really good catches in that game. He beat a defender deep, hopped up, stole the ball basically away from him, To me, it was just watching him in an NFL uniform got me super excited. And I do think Deebo is I just think he's awesome. I think he's got all the talent in the world. And if he hones his craft, he could be really good for a really long time in a Kyle Shanahan offense that if he becomes the X receiver, he's going to be good.
Yeah, Deebo he definitely is going to be someone to keep an eye on as far as these rookie receivers go. He's young enough where now he can develop a rapport with Garoppolo, and some of these other receivers. There's no real set, star on. That's the good thing about this San Francisco team is that, Garoppolo's coming into a season where he's got huge expectations, but there's no real star on this team right now in the receiver. So someone, like Deebo can make a name for himself and develop a good relationship with them. And he's certainly talented enough. So I think he has I think the sky's the limit for him as a receiver.
They have a star. His name is Kittle.
Wow.
Yeah, his name is Kittle. But yeah, I think Debo has a ton of potential. I mean, that first game really opened my eyes, and going in the 14th round, definitely another flyer that you can take. You know, like I've been saying this, at all, and I understand. I gave you Chris Thompson as my first sleeper, so that kind of went against what I've been preaching. But I've been saying, like, when you get into these later rounds, I'd much rather take shots on these young guys like Debo Samuel, Andy Isabella, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. Those guys, when you get into like the 12th, 13th, 14th round, rather than taking say Randall Cobb, who's going in the 14th round according to Fantasy Calculator, Devontae Parker 14th round. Like Devontae Parker and Debo Samuel have the same ADP right now. I'd much rather take a flyer on Debo Samuel because we've seen the Devontae Parker show already, and it's not very impressive. So when you get into these later rounds, taking a shot on rookies is to me, a better bet than going with some of these older players that have, kind of proven to let you down previously. Dan, why don't you go with your next guy?
All right, third, last on the list, I'm going to go with another rookie. I mean, we've been getting pretty good on the rookies. I think our listeners, they definitely like to hear about some young upcoming talent. And Paris Campbell, just the words coming out from Indy is that this kid he's incredible, and I love when you have young talent that have established quarterbacks. I just think that their development is a lot smoother. They don't take as long of time to become a star receiver. Some of these receivers take 2, 3, 4 years, whereas a guy like Campbell, if he can get on the same page with Luck early, I think next year he could be wide receiver 3 potential. So I think Paris Campbell actually is going to have a very good rookie year, and I would keep an eye out for him because he's not a name on a lot of people's lists. He's not a name that comes up when you talk a lot of the DK Metcalfs and the Keneal Harrys and stuff like that. But he's someone to watch out for.
Yeah, I agree. Paris Campbell is just electric with the ball in his hands. He's a dude that can beat you on every level of the field. He's extremely fast and quick. I think he's going to be a very good wide receiver. If you go look at the, 4th and Inches FF.com, go check out the player profile that I wrote on him. And, I basically explain it. Of all the rookies that could splash into the league this year, I definitely think he is the one that could have the biggest splash, with a quarterback like Andrew Luck, who, they're pretty, they are optimistic that, he is going to play week 1. And if he plays all season and he gets a rapport with Paris, the sky's the limit. Paris could be the number 1 rookie wide receiver this year in fantasy football. He definitely has that talent. And, I like him a lot.
Yeah, I like Paris Campbell too. Problem is right now with Luck not practicing and, Campbell himself hasn't been able to stay healthy for training camp. He's not going to have a rapport with Luck coming right into the season. So it may take, a little bit to develop, a little chemistry. But the guy is ultra quick. And when he gets the ball in his hands, he can make big plays happen. So, he's definitely been a guy I've been taking a shot on later as well. Like I said, them rookies, he's a guy, and that Indianapolis offense is, one of the best in the NFL, and that's kind of what you want. You want players on good teams. You don't want to be drafting, the second wide receiver on,
the Bengals.
no, the second wide receiver on the Bengals is a 6th-round pick right now.
Well,
I'll say
not talking about AJ
Bills. Sorry, Steve. I'll say Buffalo. You don't want the second wide receiver on Buffalo, as opposed to, taking a shot on, maybe the 3rd wide receiver or 4th option on Indy, because Indy's going to score a lot more points. So I'll get into my last guy. It's a guy, I've been drafting now, and it's funny because we've been doing our drafts on the Sleeper app. The Sleeper app has this dude at like 424 ADP. Like, he doesn't even get picked up. You have to search him in the name bar, and that is Dontrell Hilliard. This dude looked electric when he had the ball in his hands. I do understand that Nick Chubb is the man there, but for the first 10 weeks, 8 weeks of the season, whatever it is, until Kareem Hunt comes back, I think Hilliard is going to be their passing down back. I do think that Chubb is going to catch the ball more. That's not, unconceivable. I mean, he did have a catch or two in their first drive. But, man, when Dontrell Hilliard touched that ball, he looked really, really good. So he's been a guy I've been drafting at the end of every draft. Like I said, you can't even find him on the sleeper app. You got to type his name in. But he's another guy I've been drafting in every draft pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, he showed the other day in the preseason that he had, some explosion. So, not a guy that I watched a whole lot of tape on in college. So I'm not going to sit here and say that I know a whole bunch about him. But from what I saw in the preseason, he looked good. I mean, looked like a guy that, is shifty and quick, able to, hands catcher. Every ball he caught last week, he caught it with his hands. Looked good, looked fluid. And, in that offense, Duke Johnson had I think it was like 60 receptions last year or something like close to that. And, wasn't super targeted. So if they target this kid a lot more, then I think they could be very good. I think he could definitely be a PPR guy that, you could get late in your drafts and, he's somebody that could produce for you.
Yeah, the only concern would be, him getting some work weeks 1 through 8, and then after that, it's definitely going to be the Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt show. So, I mean, if you're going to pick them, with the upside, I mean, keep an eye on them in preseason. If you're going to pick them with the upside, just probably know that once Kareem Hunt comes back, it's probably going to be the waiver wire for him. I mean, unless he's as good, a lot of these guys surprise you, and then they take over as starters or backups over other players. So you just never know. But
he won't take a starting job.
No, not from Nick Chubb.
Not from Hunt and Chubb. But if Chubb does go down, he's probably next in line. So maybe they have another guy that they plug in there and still use him in their passing role. But
it's a good name to keep an eye on. Yeah,
injuries happen to running backs constantly. So, I think what I'm going to do before we end it is just throw out some honorable mentions that I think we
we'll
kind
just
of gave
do that for everybody because I think we had 5.
Yeah, I think we kind of gave some deep sleepers. Most of these guys are going in the 12th, 13th round. So I'm just going to throw some names that we've kind of talked about. Marvin Jones is one I've talked about. I've talked about Kalen Ballage. Going down the list here, Steve has talked about Emmanuel Sanders. He's going in the 10th round. James Washington is a guy that Dan's been high on. I've also, co-signed that. Kiki QT is a guy Steve's been high on. These are all guys going, after round 9 that, we all have been, pretty much talking up and really think that these guys could be big. And of course, Lamar Jackson is in the 11th round. Another guy that you can take a shot on, maybe Dak Prescott. He's going in the 12th round, and he's shown the ability to finish in the top 10 at quarterback. John Brown, to me, wide receiver for Buffalo, is another good one. He's going in the 13th round. We're getting all our ADPs off the fantasy football calculator app, guys. So, all them names I mentioned to you, you can go, FFC, fantasy football calculator, download the app. It gives you basically where all these guys are being drafted. And those are the names we've basically been giving you throughout the season. So, or throughout the, the preseason. So anybody you guys want to add, not really to touch on too much more or.
Yeah, I just want to.
No, go ahaden Dan.
I just wanted to say, you mentioned lastly John Brown. Just keep an eye on John Brown because he has track speed and has a ridiculous 80, 90-yard arm. So, I mean, 90's a little crazy, but hey, he does have a monster arm. So keep an eye on John Brown because these two could connect for some old school, Deshaun Jackson type bombs this year.
Yeah. So the deeper sleepers that I wanted to get into with the rookies is Justice Hill is going I think it's round 11, 12, Kev, something like that.
Justice Hill's going the 5th pick in round 12.
Yeah, so Justice Hill is a guy that could be very good in the preseason. He has 20 carries for 82 yards and a touchdown. That's pretty good numbers.
I love that kid.
Yeah, that's
I
really
love
good
that kid.
numbers. Another one is Ty Johnson. He has 3 carries for 33 yards. He has a 7.3 yard per carry average right now. He's a kid that catches the ball very well out of the backfield on a Lions team that I think is going to be using the run game a lot, and he could definitely see some work. So if you want to take a dart throw on Ty Johnson, he could, be a 60 catch receiver. I know they're saying, carry on, but I don't know if they want to give carry on a 300 touch workload. So he's going to be spelled, especially in some of those passing downs. I could see Ty Johnson taking some of that work. Marquise Brown is the last guy I want to hit on. He's not really being drafted all that high. I want to say it was like 13th round. But I just want everybody to be aware of this kid because just go look at his tape. That's all I'm going to say. Just go look at his tape. He is dangerous, boy. He is so dangerous. It doesn't matter where he touches the ball. You know what I mean? And I know the injury has slowed him down, but Kyler Murray would literally made it a point to get him the ball as much as humanly possible because this kid with the ball in his hands is just unbelievable. So, definitely a guy that I am, advocating you take a chance on later on in your draft, and he could, in this offense, be really, really good.
Hollywood.
Hollywood.
All right, so there it is. That's the podcast for tonight. Remember, don't forget to check us out on our website at www.fourthandinchesff.com. That is www.4thandinchesff.com. For a bunch of content, you got articles, blogs, player profiles, and you can subscribe to our draft guide. Until next time, peace out, guys.
Peace.
Peace.